Fox News alert, the gloves are off. The escalating war of words between the White House and President-elect Trump over Russian hacking. This as President Obama is now vowing that the U.S. will retaliate. This is Outnumbered. I'm Meghan McCain. Here today, Sandra Smith, Fox Business Network's Dagan McDowell, Democratic strategist Julie Rodzinski, and today's #OneLuckyGuy, TV Superman, actor Dean Cain. And sir, you are outnumbered.
Excellent. Thank you. Happy Friday.
We understand you have a very special Christmas announcement for us.
I do?
Yeah, that's what I was told.
That I'm hosting the Hollywood Christmas Parade. Oh, you scared me. I thought something was happening. Yeah, I'm hosting the 85th annual Holiday Christmas Parade, which airs tonight in the CW. That's a lot of fun. I love Christmas. I love the season. I love saying Merry Christmas. So there's a great show on tonight in the CW. So check it out.
You're as handsome on the inside as you are on the outside.
Say it. Preach.
Good to have
Thank
you.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
All right, let's begin. White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest stepping up his claim that President-elect Donald Trump knew about the Russian hacks aimed at Hillary Clinton.
That's not a controversial statement. I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I am trying to acknowledge a basic fact. Mr. Trump was obviously aware of the fact that Russia was engaged in malicious cyber activity, and that malicious cyber activity was having a negative impact on his opponent's campaign and was boosting his.
But the president-elect is firing right back.
This foolish guy, Josh Earnest, I don't know if he's talking to President Obama. You know, having the right press secretary is so important. But the president's very positive, but he's not positive. And I mean, maybe he's getting his orders from somebody else.
Meantime, with just 5 weeks left in office, President Obama vowing that the U.S. will retaliate against the hackers.
I think there is no doubt that when any foreign government tries to impact the integrity of our elections, that we need to take action, and we will, at a time and place of our own choosing. Some of it may be explicit and publicized, some of it may not be.
And we have Hillary Clinton also weighing in. Multiple reports say that she told a gathering of donors that the hacking of Democrats all stems from a grudge Russia's Vladimir Putin has against her. So, Dean, I'm going to go to you first. This is just getting more escalating. What do you make of all of this?
Well, Josh, not so earnest. Look, I hate to see him do that. Look, you're only in power for another 5 weeks. I would like to see a peaceful transition to government. I don't like to see the ticky-tack going back and forth. It's not fun to watch as a person sitting out there watching the news. It feels like they're blaming the Russian activity for Donald Trump's victory, which is not the case. But I will say one thing, and I've known this since before 2010. Vladimir Putin does not like Hillary Clinton. That is no secret. I've been wondering when people would talk about that, but he, of all politicians, I think she might be his least favorite. So perhaps he was trying to embarrass him, or the Russians were trying to embarrass him by showing the WikiLeaks things or whatever, if they have part to do with that. Who knows? I mean, there's so many people saying so many different things. At this point, look, we're all hacking each other all the time. I just feel like it's below the office of the president to be saying those sorts of things.
Dagan, I'm going to go to you next. So I keep having the image and the video of President Obama making fun of Mitt Romney for calling it a 1980s foreign policy when he brought up a possible threat of Vladimir Putin and Russia. Why do Democrats only care now?
Well, because they want to destroy the legitimacy of Donald Trump's presidency. That's part of what's going on. And also, why get religion now if your policy over the last 8 years has been to kowtow to Vladimir Putin and step out of the way? It's been a policy of retreat, whether you're talking about Ukraine, Syria. Russia's been waging cyber war against the United States for many years, but now all of a sudden it's time to do something about it. And Vice President Biden talked about this in October. He said the U.S. is planning to retaliate against Russia after these cyber attacks. But then he said the following: the capacity to fundamentally alter the election is not what people think. So he dismissed the fact that the result in November would be hurt by these hacks.
And Sandra, this has been, as Dagan just said, an entire 8 years of dismissiveness against Vladimir Putin and really poo-pooing the idea that they could possibly be a threat. I mean, again, Obama was caught on a hot mic break, saying he would have more flexibility after the election, to then President Medvedev, then President
We
of
all
Russia.
remember that.
The idea that they care now is a joke, and it's quite frustrating to people like me who actually have taken this seriously for the past 8 years.
But then fast forward and look at just the last few weeks where we've actually seen some kind words exchanged between Trump and President Obama. And President Obama has insisted on this peaceful transition of power, a professional one without political bias. Donald Trump's had some kind words in exchange for him. So what do you make, though, of Donald Trump suggesting that Josh Earnest is getting his orders from somebody else? David Axelrod weighed in on this and said it's highly unlikely that he's scaling up these hits without the president's approval, saying a press secretary doesn't just go out and make statements like that on an unauthorized basis.
Yeah, I buy that. Hey, listen, if David Axelrod is saying that about basically his own candidate, I think it's pretty obvious that I think the president certainly is aware of what Josh Earnest is saying, and he either condones it or is, trying to be blind.
the blinders on. I do want to get Julie into this, because the one thing that we agree on is that we don't want national security to become a partisan issue. If there was espionage attacked against the United States, an espionage attack, obviously the American public has a right to know. And threats of Russia are a real thing we should be taken seriously. And I hate the idea that it's becoming politicized.
I hate the fact that there are people out there who disagree with the fact that 17 intelligence agencies all agree that the Russians hacked. They may disagree about the motive for the hack, but there's no disagreement that the Russians hacked us. So as a result, let's take our partisan hats off. Listen, I will say that to me, the real heroes in all of this, and not just because you're sitting on this couch next to me, John McCain, Lindsey Graham, these are not people I traditionally extol as a Democrat. The people that are going out there and saying that we as Americans need to put our country above party. I think Barack Obama's record on Russia has been woeful. I think that he has fallen down on doing something about this back in the summer when he was aware this was going on. He did not do what he needed to do to make it clear that he could never do this again. For President Obama to now come out and say, we're going to pick a time and place of our choosing. Well, I'm sorry, sir, but you're out of office very soon. You're not going to be able to do that. You had the opportunity to do that 6 months ago. You did not, as far as we all know. So I think I'm by no means defending him. What I am saying is Donald Trump has to realize that the reason, as you pointed out, that the reason that she got hacked was not because Vladimir Putin wanted to help Donald Trump. He hated Hillary Clinton. And so as a result, he aided Donald Trump, maybe not purposely, but he did. Donald Trump has to understand that the minute he stands up to Vladimir Putin, if Putin's not punished for his behavior now, he will get hacked. His offices will get hacked. His supporters will get hacked. So for anybody here who's very cognizant of the fact that this hurt Hillary Clinton, so why don't we just not focus on it because we love Donald Trump? It's going to happen to Donald Trump unless he goes along with everything Vladimir Putin wants, if we don't punish Putin today. So let's take our partisan hats off here, realize what's best for our country is what's best for our country. It is to punish an adversary and a foe. And let's make no mistake, Vladimir Putin is a foe of this country. Punish him in a bipartisan manner and make it clear that there are things in life more important than partisan politics, and that is standing up for the values that we believe in. Foreign governments do not hack us. I don't care who you are or what party you belong to.
Period.
That's true.
But we need to go to a clip of Kellyanne Conway, who is asking the question a lot of people have: why did the White House wait so long?
Did you have person after person from the Clinton campaign going on TV? Did you have Beyonce and Jay-Z doing a shout out to warn everybody about the Russian hacking interference on Hillary's campaign fortunes? No, you heard nothing about it, Martha. They didn't spend a penny of their $1.2 billion in any serious ad or campaign about it. Why? Because they thought they were going to win.
Dagan?
The administration says that President Obama did have words with Vladimir Putin on this issue in September, that he not only complained but warned Vladimir Putin to his face about the consequences. And we did hear from the intelligence community in October. We heard from Vice President Biden, who I just quoted. And they're arguing, the White House, that they didn't want to interfere with the election. I think the bigger question is, where was the Obama administration, as I pointed out, the last 8 years? To paraphrase Charles Krauthammer, if the role of being a superpower is to be so strong that you send a message and you have a structure of deterrence in place to prevent this kind of thing from happening. And we were talking about bipartisanship on this issue. Lindsey Graham, and expect people on the right and the left to hammer Rex Tillerson to get some answers out of him in terms of his relationship with Vladimir Putin. He was against sanctions against Russia. Again, he will now be in the role of representing and protecting the United States. He's going to have to prove that and then some when he's being confirmed.
Let me also say this about Rex Tillerson, since you brought this up. It's a very easy answer for him at his confirmation hearings. Will you or will you not continue the imposition of sanctions? I would say, based on what we learned today and over the past few weeks, strengthen those sanctions. Don't have bilateral agreements, which is what I understand you're about to have potentially with this Trump administration coming in, having bilateral agreements economically with Russia. No. Sanction not the Russian people, but sanction Putin's inner circle. It is not hard to do. Revoke their visas. Do not allow them to go to the West. Do not allow them to shelter their money in the city of London. Do not allow them to shelter their money in real estate in New York.
Wait, you want him to disclose this at a confirmation hearing?
I want him to disclose exactly how he intends to punish the Russians for what they did. I want him to tell us that he's not going to take away sanctions. I want him to tell us that, in fact, he's going to reimpose and argue for stronger sanctions. It is entirely in the purview of the President of the United States to do that.
Look at it.
He has to do it.
I think it can be much simpler than that. I think it can be, do you recognize that Russia has funded terror? Is that a problem you're going to have when you have whatever business dealings or international dealings as representative of the United States? Do you recognize that? Do you recognize that if we get into bed with these people, we're also getting into bed with Bashar al-Assad? It's not, really isn't that complicated. That's the main question I think a lot of Americans have.
I do want to acknowledge that the Democrats are now using this hacking issue to basically destroy Donald Trump's presidency before he's ever inaugurated. And the fact that the president is now coming out and being so tough and vocal in an interview is kind of appalling.
They have a problem with everything, though. I mean, they had a problem with his call to Taiwan. Every single thing he does, they're going to have a problem with. And this one, I just, you know.
Where would they have learned that from over the past 8 years? I don't know.
Okay, moving on, Julie. A top lawmaker with a stunning revelation. Homeland Security officials knew the Ohio State attacker was a terrorist recruitment risk, but they let him in the country anyways. Did the Obama administration drop the ball? Plus, fat cat Democratic donors demanding answers on what exactly went wrong after pouring more than $1 billion into Hillary Clinton's failed campaign. Will anyone tell them?
Fox News alert for you. We are watching the Dow as we have been. It is approaching that key 20,000 level, up 22 points in today's session. It has closed at a record 16 times since Donald Trump was elected president. We'll keep watching this for you. Here's a number for you. This year alone, the Dow is up 2,427 points.
Let's get this done. Let's get this done.
That's
$1 trillion in additional market value for the S&P 500 companies since Donald Trump's election. There you go.
And there you have it. A shocking revelation on the Ohio State University attack, where a Somali refugee injured 11 people last month after plowing his car into pedestrians and then stabbing people with a butcher knife. Now a top lawmaker says Homeland Security officials knew the attacker was a possible recruitment target of Islamic terrorists, but he was granted asylum anyway, along with his mother and 6 of his siblings. Senator Chuck Grassley, in a letter to the Homeland Security Secretary, writing, quote, "This information should have caused the asylum officer to conduct additional questioning of the older children to better understand ties to a group that the United States designated as a foreign terrorist organization in 2008. However, although common practice in these cases, no additional questioning was conducted." This is a new Fox News poll shows 43% of people feel less safe since President Obama entered the White House nearly 8 years ago. Julie, that's hard to fathom that after 8 years, we're not feeling any better about our safety and our situation.
Well, you know, look, as you have the rise of ISIS and you have the destabilization of the world abroad, I think people are feeling less safe. And I understand not everybody, obviously, that poll showed that a majority don't. But when you have constant concern, not just about that, about gun violence, which I know a lot of Republicans don't want to talk about, but I feel less safe or potentially more scared going into a movie theater that somebody can open fire with a gun on because it's become so easy to be able to purchase a firearm. For all those reasons, I understand why people don't feel that safe. I don't think it's just relative to terrorism. I think it's also relative to the fact that we have violence that has escalated, not nationally, but a specific type of violence. Gun violence, to me, is something I'm worried about.
So, Dean, let's go back to this instance at Ohio State University, Abdul Artan. How did he get through the system, and what does that say about our immigration system in this country?
Well, stronger vetting is needed. Obviously, he didn't quite slip through the cracks. I think he walked through an open crack and walked right in there. I think that I like President-elect Trump's idea on stronger vetting, especially from countries that are known as terrorist havens. I think that's very important. You know, once you start at the top, the administration administration takes a different tack and say, look, we're going to vet these people very, 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 very hard and very, very closely, I think you'll find less instances of that. As far as the, feeling less safe, all the things that have happened, though, I agree with you that, a lot of people feel less safe. I feel less safe. I don't feel less safe because of gun violence. I feel less safe because of all the things that are going on in the world that has happened under this administration.
That is, it's interesting. There's actually a poll done on this. That is a complete, what you and I are saying is a complete partisan bias, where they say that liberals traditionally feel less safe because of extra gun violence and conservatives do because of terrorist threats. And it's interesting how your own kind you're kind of informing your own bias. I guess we're confirming our own biases there. But
we've had a president who won't talk about radical Islamic terrorism and won't talk about the connective tissue of the jihadi ideology, and every time that there is a mass death of people, he talks about gun violence. So that's what we've been living with the last 8 years. And don't forget, in that speech that he gave recently about terrorism, over the last 8 years, no foreign terrorist organization has successfully planned or executed an attack on our homeland. But what about all of the attacks that we've seen that were rooted, whether they're lone wolf or not, that were rooted in that radical Islamic ideology? So, the Tsarnaev brothers, Nidal Hassan, Brett Stevens pointed out on Twitter at the time, he was like, there were 18 emails between Anwar al-Awlaki and the Fort Hood killer, but that was workplace violence. That's the kind of refusal to acknowledge the world that we live in, that we've been living with the last 8 years.
But I mean, and you go back to this instance, though, where Homeland Security officials knew the attacker was a possible recruitment target of Islamic terrorists, but was granted asylum anyway. What more can we be doing in this country, Megan?
Well, listen, our own president-elect met with all of Silicon Valley, except Twitter, yesterday, day before yesterday. And I have said this many times on this show, Silicon Valley needs to do a better job of flagging some of these people on Facebook. I know that makes libertarians' heads pop off, but honestly, this specific shooter, the Ohio State University shooter, I talked to a security expert who said these are threats he put on his Facebook page against America. Someone should have flagged that. Someone should have targeted that. If you're making threats against this country, you should be pulled aside and arrested and called into questioning.
They can filter, flag, and track child pornography. It is the law.
Yeah.
So why can't they do it with radical Islamic terrorism?
Can I get an amen? I don't understand why it's any different. I don't understand why it's any different.
Oh, but that's free speech, Megan. They can't interfere with that.
All right. They paid millions and millions of dollars to see Hillary Clinton win the presidency. Now some of Clinton's top donors want more than a thank you. They want answers from her campaign and the Democratic Party. And Arnold Schwarzenegger's message for those Clinton supporters who still can't get over the fact that Donald Trump is the president-elect. All right, happy Friday, everyone. Donors who forked over a combined $1 billion to Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign want some answers. Clinton and Tim Kaine hosted a thank you event for mega donors in New York City last night. But a lot of supporters say they really want to know what went wrong with the election and how the Democratic Party is going to turn things around. This article highlighting the anger. Donors recognize that part of the problem is the current fragile state of the party. With the race for its chairmanship raging, the Democratic National Committee has yet to announce any plans for a full post-mortem. And while individual Democratic operatives have privately dug into what they think went wrong, there have been no obvious moves from central members of the Clinton team to publish a full accounting. Julia, I'm going to go to you first again.
Yes, my friend.
I would like to know, where is that full post-mortem? I mean, where is that internal look that everybody expected after this stunning loss?
I suspect, first of all, that when the new DNC chair comes in, I would urge them to think seriously about doing a postmortem and, like the RNC, to actually follow the recommendations of that postmortem that the RNC did not do 4 years ago, despite the fact that Donald Trump got elected, going against everything that the RNC recommended 4 years ago. But I will also say, I think we know what went wrong to some extent. What went wrong, I think, is a combination of arrogance and an inability to listen to people on the ground. When they had people in places like Michigan telling them that there were problems, they looked at metrics. Now, I'm a huge believer in metrics. You heard me talk about this for years on this couch. I now understand that metrics aren't always the end-all be-all of things, as I thought they were for a very long time, something that I think the Democratic Party should listen to, that I think human intelligence is also very important. And so, And I think to some extent we lacked a coherent message. I mean, the easiest thing to say is that Donald Trump talked about making America great again. Everybody could project onto that message whatever they wanted. In 1992 was the economy stupid. In 1984 was Morning in America. What was it for Hillary Clinton this year? The answer is it was segmented for every single different community, but not one big recommendation.
How can it look like they're really taking an internal look and are serious about change, Dagan, when they're putting the same people back in power? Case in point, Nancy Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi is still running. They're still not listening to people outside of their own thought group. And as much of a math nerd as I am, it's not numbers, it's hearts and minds. And these are people who genuinely lack empathy for the people who are clinging to their guns and their Bibles in between New York City and Los Angeles. I also think something that hurt her was the fact she expected women to vote for her and told women to vote for her simply because she was a woman and it was time a woman ran the country. Madeleine Albright said there's a special place in hell for women who don't support each other and don't support Hillary Clinton. And then she comes out the very early morning hours after Donald Trump won that election, and she didn't have the guts to stand up in front of her supporters and say thank you. That kind of weakness, that does a disservice to all women. And I'll say it here. She ran on being a feminist, and she sure as heck didn't act like one.
And Dean, money is not enough, clearly. Yeah. I mean, $1 billion into Hillary Clinton's campaign, and she lost against somebody who ran on much less than that. But still, they put Nancy Pelosi back in power because she brings in the money. What are they not understanding?
Yeah, nothing. They're not understanding any of it. They bought and paid for this presidency. It's $1 billion. They were like, we got it. We won. We own this thing. And her and Tim Kaine, no relation, by the way. have a lot of explaining to do. But yeah, the Democratic Party doesn't seem to be changing. I thought I was done seeing Nancy Pelosi on my television screen all the time, but nope, she's there. Now her daughter's out there talking about other stuff. So I got a lot of, at least Harry Reid's going to go. At least that part I can rest easy on. But they don't seem to be changing much.
There's a much larger problem within the Democratic Party, and I was actually having a conversation this morning with Nomiki Kunst, who comes on this channel a lot. She's a big Bernie supporter. That there's a generational divide in the Democratic Party as well, and you've got a lot of young millennials who are ready to bail and vote independent, vote for somebody else because they feel like this is business as usual. They're, Wall Street funded, Nancy Pelosi. There's no change, and there was an ideological shift within the Democratic Party this time around, and they're not listening to these people. So, past money, who are you? Who do you represent? Who is the leader? Because there are very different people from very different sides of this party standing up to this. Beyond that, there's a very interesting article in Vanity Fair talking about how Hillary Clinton and henchwoman Huma, as I love to call her, how they were so isolated that they didn't let anyone else in, didn't let anyone penetrate their bubble, that they weren't listening to anyone. And that is one giant lesson any candidate running for president.
I think that's right. And I will say one thing about millennials. I was what millennials are today. I was that age when Ralph Nader ran in 2000, and a lot of people my age and said, we're going to not vote for Al Gore. We're sick of the Clinton years. We're going to vote. We don't like George Bush. We're going to vote third party. We're going to stay home. People my age don't make that mistake after 8 years of George Bush anymore who are Democrats. And I predict to you that millennials after 4 years of Donald Trump are going to understand that they may not have loved Hillary Clinton. She was not my first choice as the candidate. But they're going to see what 4 years of Donald Trump is like, and I guarantee you they may not be staying home 4 years.
But I don't think there will come out for someone that doesn't have fresh ideas.
That's for sure.
Those millennials might actually be real happy because they might have a job. There's that.
You know what? Hope springs eternal, my friend.
Started their own God, you're right. And they're rich and they're Republican. So moving on to Arnold Schwarzenegger. Mr. Schwarzenegger has a message for Hillary Clinton voters who still can't get over the results of the election.
Now it is very important that we all support the president, that we all come together and we stop whining, and it becomes one nation, because it's not, as Obama said many years ago, it's not blue states and red states, it's the United States of America.
In October, the actor and former governor of California said he did not vote for President-elect Trump. Meantime, a group of celebrities is calling on dozens of GOP electors not to vote for President-elect Trump when the members of the Electoral College cast their ballots next week.
What is evident is that Donald Trump lacks more than the qualifications to be president.
He lacks the necessary stability.
And clearly the respect for the Constitution of our great nation.
You have the position,
the authority,
and the opportunity to go down in the books as an American hero
who changed the course of history.
And you have my respect.
Wow.
That'll work.
Dean Cain. They have your respect.
He was physically uncomfortable watching that.
You know, Ace Ventura, when he almost hurls. Where's the camera? Is there a camera right there? Look. On behalf of Hollywood, I apologize.
Oh my God.
I am sorry. I am sorry. I mean, look. It's in the Constitution, the electors, that whole situation. I get what they're saying. I disagree wholeheartedly. I'm sorry. I am so sorry.
Why is their opinion less relevant, though, than Arnold Schwarzenegger's?
It's not.
Who, by the way, is, and let's just be clear, is a co-executive producer on Celebrity Apprentice with Donald Trump.
He's the new host.
So, yeah, but he's also the co-executive producer. So he might have a little bit of a financial vested interest in keeping Donald Trump happy these days.
No,
People who understand the writings of Alexander Hamilton because they saw the musical.
That's right. I didn't, though, but they probably got tickets.
So maybe they need to go back and bone up on the Constitution that the whole point of the framers believed in the will of the people and the choice of the people, and the choice would be Donald Trump.
Well, the choice of the people actually would be Hillary Clinton, but the way the Electoral College is set up, it's Donald Trump, which means that you can have faithless electors, as Hamilton pointed out.
Yeah, but we know what the Electoral College is set up for and why it was set up, and we're not a true democracy. We're not mob rule, and it's good that we're not. We're a constitutional republic, and that's a great thing.
Right.
You know, I just. For Arnold, I want to say one thing real quick. He has to catch his catchphrase for his new show. I want to go on record as he should say, "You're terminated." That's what I want to go with terminated. I want to go with that one. But he's right. You know, I think it's time for people to stop whining. Get behind our president. Look, I didn't vote for Barack Obama either time, but once he was elected, I got behind him and I wanted him to succeed. And that's the way it should be.
How about you won't be back?
Still like terminated.
What were you going to say?
Just shot
Arnold
down.
Schwarzenegger was also the governor of California for a long time, and he's a very successful governor. So he gets a little more clout when he's talking politics with me than any of those people. I don't recognize anyone except B.D. Wong in that
Deborah
video
Messing
and
Park.
Martin Sheen.
President
Bartlett.
And the other guy from the West Wing, whose name I can't remember.
I don't know.
The other
but
guy.
it's just these people, I know that a few of these people are extremely vocal on Twitter, and I just think, like, at a certain point, you have to start looking towards the future instead of the past if you're a Democrat right now. And, like, what are you going to do to fix these fences? What are you going to do to talk to people in the middle of the country? Because clearly only talking to L.A., New York, and Massachusetts, it's not working out too well for everybody. And all of these people that do this, they need to go on a tour of the country, talk to real Americans, and then come back to me about why you think you know better than the average coal miner in West Virginia.
The irony is the Electoral College was set up to avoid this kind of political tampering and politicking, as the Wall Street Journal editorial page points out. What did we not know about Donald Trump when people went to the polls in November? That's the point.
I just want to know what your colleagues say when you go back to Hollywood after you just made that apology. Do they talk to you?
I will happily engage them, but people don't really want to engage very much in discussing policy or politics. I don't get all upset and start screaming at people, but I do get that on the other side, where people literally just won't be able to have the conversation. They start calling me names, and then it devolves into nothingness.
Scott Baio got in a fight with his neighbor, the wife of his neighbor.
Yeah, he got into a fight with the wife of one of his neighbors?
Yeah, apparently. I wasn't there.
No, I mean, she was fighting him.
I wasn't there. I didn't see it.
Allegedly. Facebook, meantime, announcing it's going to take steps to put a stop to fake news stories on your news feed. Can their fix really work, or should it be just up to the user to decide whether something in their feed is true?
The suspect accused of opening fire at a D.C. pizza place after becoming outraged over a fake news story is back in court today on assault and gun charges. And when it comes to the spreading of fake stories, Facebook says it is going to start fact-checking and burying stories that aren't true, joining forces with organizations that already do that kind of thing, like Snopes. A post on Facebook's blog explaining, quote, "We'll use the reports from our own community along with the other signals to send stories to these organizations. If the fact-checking organizations identify a story as fake, it will get flagged as disputed, and there will be a link to the corresponding article explaining why. Stories that have been disputed may also appear lower in the news feed." So, I'm going to go to you first, Dean. There was a man that obviously opened fire in a pizza place. Obviously incredibly scary after reading a fake news story. What do you think?
I think that's kind of ridiculous. I have been accused of retweeting fake news stories when I retweet Fox News. So you guys are like number one, right? You guys number one, didn't get number one. But I get called. I've been told that I'm retweeting fake news, and that happens all the time. So look, I don't get my news from Facebook. Apparently, a lot of people do. I know they've buried things that they wanted to bury in the past, and I think it's an interesting proposition. I don't want there to be fake news out there. I mean, go to a reputable source and somebody you do trust, like I do trust Fox News. I will look at CNN. Sorry, but I will look at different organizations that I know and trust. So I think that's important before you retweet something or act on it or go to a pizza parlor and shoot somebody up, which is obviously ridiculous.
Yeah, I think, Dagan, Facebook has been proven to show that they suppress conservative news stories. So there is, for me, an automatic, well, what is your impression of a fake news story going to be? Is if it's a positive story about a conservative, are you going to put it down on lower on the news feed? So I understand the skepticism, but when you hear this Pizzagate story, it obviously raises a lot of fear.
Yeah, if you're pro-life and say you own a gun, that's hate speech. Yeah. And Facebook will target you. Facebook has a role in this, but ultimately it comes down to the individual. As more people use Facebook and social media to get their news, Pew did a study earlier this year, 62% of U.S. adults get news on social media, and on Facebook, it was 2/3 of people on Facebook get news on the site. You've got to weed the stuff out. Stop putting or posting or sharing information that is clearly spurious, questionable. I mean, this is the equivalent of the emails that we always used to get that friends would pass around that were so kooky. You had to email them back saying, hey, can you not email me that at work? I think ultimately it comes down to personal responsibility as well as the responsibility of Facebook.
You like Facebook getting this involved? I mean, when you dig into it, they're saying that they're going to have these, they're going to be using other signals like algorithms that detect whether a story that appears fake is going viral to determine if it should label that story as fake and bury it in people's feeds. I think this gives them a lot of authority and a lot of room for something to go wrong and for real news to actually
But they have to take
filtered out.
responsibility for it, though, because they're making money off the backs of all of this. It's just like if we're going to call on them to crack down on radical Islamic terror talk and crack down on anything that is questionable that could lead to violence.
I wonder how
transparent
they're going to be with the algorithms.
You know what's tough? Because I remember sitting on this couch, 4 or 5 months ago, and we were complaining, and rightly so, that they seem to be suppressing conservative articles, and we said we should just let an algorithm do this and not have the human element do it, so that therefore it's not going to be biased. Well, what an algorithm then provides you is the fake news. So it's such a complicated issue, because when you have an algorithm do it, the algorithm can't determine whether the Pizzagate story, which is clearly false, should be the #1 story, where a human being can say clearly nobody's running a sex shop out of a suburban pizza store in suburban Washington. So, I don't know what the answer is, because we thought we found a solution to them suppressing certain type of speech, and then shortly thereafter it comes out that what that's led to now is the proliferation. Let's say prophylactic. Proliferation. I'm like,
whoa, that's a Friday slip.
But proliferation of fake news stories. So I don't know.
The answer is don't get your news from Facebook. There's your answer.
That's true. Yeah, right. Use it for looking at photos of dogs and elf costumes.
All I do is shop online on Facebook. So I don't know. All right, 'tis the season for the holiday office party. We had our outnumbered one last night. Yeah. Only trouble is now it's not okay to say holiday at one university. They prefer end of semester party so as not to take a chance on offending anyone. Whether we're getting a little too concerned with being PC, I think yes. And one school district finding out don't mess with Charlie Brown. A judge ruling a decorating featuring a famous line from Linus can stay up. But how did it get to this point? I love Charlie Brown. More Outnumbered in just a minute, but first to Jenna Lee with what's coming up in the second hour of Happening Now. Hi, Jenna.
Hey there, Megan. Next hour, breaking news on 2 important regions of Asia. First, you have China stealing that U.S. underwater drone, further heightening tensions in the South China Sea, already at a boiling point. And now we've also learned that the new president of the Philippines is threatening to kick out U.S. forces from that country. So a lot to focus on in Asia. Gordon Chang joins us top of the hour for all of that breaking news and more on Happening Now.
Looking forward to that, Jenna.
All right, well, forget Merry Christmas. One college wants to do away with another common phrase, holiday party. As first reported in Campus Reform, Texas Women's University seems to believe that holiday is no longer inclusive, preferring the term end of semester parties instead. In a media release, the school saying, quote, when planning December office parties that coincide with the Christmas season, it is a challenge for event organizers to make celebrations all inclusive. Not all faith traditions have holidays in December, and not everyone identifies with a particular faith tradition. Well, the university also recommends not decorating with Santa Claus, a red-nosed reindeer, or evergreen trees. It's like a Christmas tree, okay? Suggesting that folks use snowflakes, snowmen, or winter themes instead. Dean Cain has got his hands on his head. Can't believe it.
Come on. I mean, seriously, I love that they say decorate with snowflakes, though. That is hysterical to me because snowflake has become obviously a euphemism for a whole other type of person. Look, I looked at this and I was like, holiday, how could that be offensive? So I looked up holiday really quickly, and it says holiday, a day of festivity or recreation when no work is done. How is that offensive in any way, shape,
it's
or form?
unbelievable.
I don't get it. So I just find it's just ridiculous.
We had our lovely Outnumbered holiday party last evening, and on my Facebook page, I put out the picture and I said the Outnumbered holiday party. I can't tell you how many people responded, "Merry Christmas!" But there does seem to be some pent up, people out there about this.
I'm not even kidding. My notes for this was Trump won, grow a pair. That was my notes for this.
Mic
He's
drop and
making
walk away.
Christmas great again. There are a lot of things I don't like about Donald Trump, but I'm saying Merry Christmas left and right to everybody right now that once upon a time maybe wasn't so politically correct.
One of the events he had in the past week that I was worried that the giant Christmas trees behind him were going to fall. There was so much holiday spirit. I just love the irony that this university, Texas Women's University, is a co-ed university, and they're not hung up on changing the name, which completely leaves out one entire gender.
Much like every other instance in life, Seinfeld provides the answer, which is a Festivus for the rest of us, my friends. Wow. Yeah, you're airing your grievances out. You're polled. That's all you need to do. Stop getting all upset. Air your grievances.
Julie, do you know people that really get upset about this?
I don't. I also don't know anybody that was prevented from saying Merry Christmas over the last 8 years, despite the phony war on Christmas that we seem to believe is being waged. So
I don't think it's funny. I've been corrected before.
You know what? I am a liberal and I'm not even Christian. Merry Christmas, everybody.
This is wow.
Not that hard.
There are always lawyers on the prowl looking for a case, looking for something to get upset about, just like what we're going to talk about right now. In Texas, one school district is learning a valuable lesson. You don't mess with Charlie Brown. A judge ruling that a homemade decoration featuring a famous line from a Charlie Brown Christmas can stay on display at a middle school.
For unto you was born this day in the city of David.
That a nurse's aide put up on her door at the school. The school board voted to take it down, saying it might offend kids who don't share Christian beliefs. But citing freedom of speech, a judge has ruled that it could stay as long as the aide adds the words on it, Ms. Shannon's Christmas message. Dean, what do you think?
Well, I'm glad that First Amendment stood up there and she was able to put that up there as free speech. That's a good thing. I think that's nice. But it's so amazing how many things are being torn down. I mean, I played Superman, who stood for truth, justice, and the American way. And I bet you I couldn't even say that these days.
Sure you could, because it's not a religious statement to make that.
If I show the American flag, someone's going to get upset. I mean, how much of that have we seen? To me, it boggles my mind. So I'm really glad that in this text, two things happened in Texas. It's odd, but I'm glad that this changed. I mean, I think Texas is where it wouldn't happen, but I guess I'm wrong.
Yeah, Geraldo Rivera would have never had a talk show if not for Texas and Florida. So we love Texas.
I don't know.
That's actually an old joke. That's an old joke. But Julie, there are people out there who are looking for a reason to get upset.
Listen,
you say Merry Christmas. It's Charlie Brown. Are they going to ask that Charlie Brown's Christmas not even be aired anymore because it might offend people who happen to walk by a TV set with the sound up?
You can air Charlie Brown's Christmas. You can air the Ten Commandments. You could air The Greatest Story Ever Told. I mean, go ahead and air it. My only problem, and this is where I start, this is like the worst subject ever because I get more hate mail on this than anything else. I'm a big believer in the separation of church and state and not having tax dollars be used for it. If this teacher did not use tax dollars for this, and it sounds like she didn't, then I'm okay with it. If the school, because they get tax dollars, put up a sign, a message that's very obviously Christian, because it refers to the birth of Jesus Christ, then I have a problem with that, because that is a separation of church and state issue for me. I've always been strong about that, and I've gotten no more hate mail on any issue than on this particular issue. So bring it on, my friends.
I'm not going to fight with you on that.
It was a card.
I'm like, how many thousands and thousands of tax dollars were spent on that tiny little card from Miss Shannon that was put on it? I mean, give me a break.
Not one
Come
penny.
on. I mean, I feel bad for Miss Shannon. She was just trying to spread a little good cheer during Christmas time, and of course it becomes a PC
Sandra's
trigger.
making her famous Sandra face.
Yeah, baby.
Go ahead, bring it.
Charlie Brown is a big hit in our house right now. I have 2 toddlers, and if you haven't watched it this Christmas season, do it. It's fun. Actually, the most offensive thing about Charlie Brown is the number of times that Lucy says stupid or calls people stupid,
Lucy's
right?
a bully. We talked about this during the break. Lucy's really mean. So are her little friends.
We literally do a whole show just on Lucy.
I actually get really sad for Charlie Brown because he gets so bullied by Lucy. I forgot how much until I had a toddler to watch.
Vince Guaraldi, and I will do my Peanuts dance. Is that good? I love it. I can do all the dances in that scene, by the way. More outnumbered in just a moment, everybody.